welcome to the Conroe Estates, the official debrief. This has been a fun journey over the last few months. It's been our the largest acquisition in company history. So honestly, we are honored to get the deal done and feel blessed now on this side of it that we did fully get it done. We raised the money, even though we were shaking in our boots a little bit on the front end. And, getting through the entire deal from start to finish, there's a lot of fun, and I say fun, but sometimes challenging dynamics that go into that. And so we like to kind of circle the wagons and have a good time. I'll nudge in some cool wins and celebratory kind of discussion points as we go, because there were some fun that we went through. A lot of people stepped up and crushed it to get this deal done.
So 422 sites in Conroe, Texas, which is North Houston area. How did you come across that market, and how did you find the deal? Let's start with why Conroe, and how did you find the deal?
So yeah, this over the last few years, we really have become very specific about the markets that we want to participate in. Mm-hmm. And so you start with the market and the growth of the market, which it's like you can't ignore Houston's robust economic engine. So once we said, okay, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston, we started kind of putting feelers out. Then, same old stuff. You talk to the brokers, you kind of start to hear rumors about deals, maybe timing that will come around. And Conroe became a talking point kind of early in the year that they would maybe be willing to move off of it and sell it. And Conroe being the north and northernmost big suburb that's growing of Houston,
out of flood zone and lots of other variables,
made my ears perk up, and I was really excited about it on the front end. And then once you pulled back more layers of information, it just seemed to kind of confirm everything we thought about and we knew about Houston Metro, the economics going on there. But then the growth when you go out to Conroe, it is unbelievable.
And we could feel it when we were out there too.
So then the deal was actually pretty simple from a sourcing side. It's just relationship with a broker. We've been working together 10 plus years, and it's just wiggling into the right price.
And it was enough scale for us.
And it's 422 units, which is our dream operationally. I'd say this is the easiest deal for me to get tied on board immediately.
I know, I would agree.
We got to talk about the pipeline where this deal kind of came aboard.
That's where I was going to. Just so people know how these things actually transpire, and Blake, it starts with Blake, right? Of uncovering this deal and then bringing it up in pipeline. We have a weekly pipeline meeting every Tuesday where we go through just kind of current operations, current acquisitions, dispositions, refinances, and so forth. And he brings this deal up, and the first thing I was like, oh, Houston. I'm just thinking about flood and just
hurricane,
everything like that. And he's like, but it's 422 sites. And we start peeling back the onion more, and the deal, it's wow, it doesn't touch a flood. It's North Houston in the better submarket. So you get all of that growth that's happening in the Woodlands, and just the overall business sector is the North Houston sector, is that Houston, is that Woodlands, Conroe, submarket. That is the market. So you're away from the Gulf. You don't touch a flood. 422 sites, which we'll hand over to Ty talking about. Amazing infrastructure in place, 91% occupied. And so at first I was like, oh shit, all right, Blake's gonna have to do some convincing. But after sitting with it for a while, what I always do is okay, yes, I believe in it too. I see this. And I didn't realize how good it was until obviously you get into the deal.
We had to fight Ben kicking and screaming in the beginning.
Yes. But then I always look over to Tide, it's generally my check is okay, yeah, I'm with you. Okay, Tide,
can we operate? How do you feel?
Let's go to operations. Yeah. And he's like, this is my dream park. And then once I hear that, I'm like, all right, let's roll.
Yeah.
Well, this, just for clarity, this is always, it's sort of like our investment committee dynamic where I have to really bring it up and kind of sell the main punchline items of hey, it's this much population in Houston. Look at this. The population is growing, and I lay out the whole story.
Right.
And what's fun is now it's everybody really takes that ownership, from is the capital worth putting there? Is the risk worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the growth really there? But then can we execute on it from an operational perspective? that whole conversation happens. And that's typically before we've ever been there, which I think is an interesting point. Because, we look at probably at least 10 deals a week.
Yep.
To where you're never going to be able to go and look at all of them. And so when deals start to get serious, and then once we have like a signed LOI, we book a trip, because until then it's not serious enough.
Right.
So then we go there. And I feel like when we went there, it really put a lot of our tendencies to be worried about the market and the uncertainties. It really put that to rest in a lot of ways. Because when you go to the market, we always say, like, if you go there and you feel the vibe of growth, you get it. And it's either there or it's not.
Yeah, and you do feel it, and a lot of clarity comes from
At
that.
a high level, let's talk about this from a tide strike, and then we should cover, because we did kind of go through underwriting and make some adjustments, and love your initial breakout on underwriting and what we changed
You have to
after
define a tide strike.
I was just going to say that.
A tide strike it's pretty simple. I like deals that have scale. All city services. I want it in a conservative metro that's growing. Over 2 million people is really my ideal. And we want to be in a place where we know that we can potentially buy more communities and continue to develop the infrastructure of the team on the ground, because that's really how we compress expense ratios. And so when this deal came across, I'm like 90% occupied, like 15 minutes north of the Woodlands, all city services, 200 amp electric. Like, I just went down the list. And it was funny because in the moment, Ben had just crushed it on Fiesta and raised a bunch of money. Yeah. And I think it was like, part of it, we got to call a spade a spade. I think part of it was like, oh man, this is going to be a big raise. And Ben in the pipeline looks at him and he goes, Tide, it's got 29 infill homes. And we just closed a deal that had 29 infill homes. I'm like, I just did it. I'm like, this is way better than that deal. This is an amazing deal.
Just looking for a way out. Really scared.
Well, at that point, it's like you're going on we've been on a long hike. Like at this point, we've been hiking. It's like March, April, May, May leaning, into like the second quarter. And we just been busy. We raised some money. We just closed another deal, and now we're staring up at the largest deal we've done.
$32 million. Is a big raise after coming off that.
It was a big boy raise.
It was the largest raise we've ever had, undertaken in one deal.
Good job,
too.
Ben.
So.
And I had both of my Morgans that crushed it. So it's a team effort. So yeah, it was.
A worthy opponent that was crushed.
And then, like, if we're on the race too, I think when you step outside of your comfort zone, you really push yourself for growth. And one of the things that Blake brought up was like, hey, I was just like on Claude, like talking about like how institutions go into like a big raise, like what's that structure? And what they do is they go meet with all their large clients and sit down ahead of getting into the deal and like have like a formal lunch or like a formal meeting, which we meet with clients all the time. But I've been on that side of I used to do that. I was like, that's exactly what we do. And so I think we put a lot of like strategic effort and didn't just go into it blind, knowing that it was a large raise and the deal was amazing. We wanted to, we wanted the opportunity to be able to provide this to our clients. But I think we went into it eyes wide open and structured a very professional, fundraise process with communications with our top investors. We did the investor summit where we brought all of our investors. We do this every year.
That was.
And had, we're in the hangar with the stage and top speakers. And then at the very end, we kind of introduced this deal. So I think we hit it just right. And it made the biggest raise ever feel like it wasn't the biggest raise ever. And I think it's because of the organization, the focus, and just the overall professionalism that came through and showed through to the clients who were, fighting tooth and nail to get into this deal. And then we were oversubscribed and we've raised it in 10 weeks, which I was planning on raising this in 90 days was my initial plan, right? As I structured the raise. And we did it, a month earlier. And so couldn't have done it without the entire team, right? Because there's a lot of people that I have to pick and pull and step in. You both jumping into a lot of meetings and the investor summit, which was a huge success as well. And so like when I really reflect, it was a massive team effort, and it really 100%. Was because everyone was on the boat and we all had the common mission.
I think it did push all of us where we had to kind of like expand our ideas in what we've done historically because it was such a big raise. We're like, well, let's have the investor summit. Let's start to have lunches. And, these relationships with the investors are important to us, and we don't get a lot of face time with a lot of them. And so it was a really unique opportunity for us to really build and grow those relationships and show them this phenomenal property that we were really excited about.
So sorry, yeah. I want to keep going, but I want to shout out the Morgans.
Yeah.
Morgan and Morgan.
Yeah. Morgan and
Morgan. Have you been injured in a car accident?
Because you guys crushed it. And, it was a huge team effort.
I was.
And I feel like having the guys behind you on this one fully, and like all of us vectoring for the one deal at the same time, it really brought a lot of new juice and new energy, ideas, and execution know-how on this one.
The other thing too that I thought was a huge win, we almost kind of got distracted at the end. I don't say distracted, but we had some, it's always about, in anything, separating noise from signal. And I think a huge win, especially for a deal of this size, we knew we were going to take in 1031 money, right? Which one is huge on a dollar for dollar figure, but also just logistically and on the legal side, a lot of this lender structure, solidifying the paperwork takes a lot of time. And we had a, no later than finalized decision by May 31st. And so we locked in the McCoys, and then we also locked in another investor at $1.5 million. And what that did was we had a lot of going into the raise, we had probably 15 or 17 million worth of maybe 1031s, right?
Yeah.
And we ended up at 7.5, which is a big difference, because if we were banking on 50, 60% of it being 1031 money, and then these wheels are spinning, July comes and half of it comes through, we would have been screwed, because it came out, the sellers, if we were going to miss our deadline, things could have been very different. And that's the type of decision that could lead us down that path.
100%.
But we said May 31st is the deadline. You're in, you're out, 1031. And we held that line, and we got the $1.5 million in, we got the McCoys in. And then we knew, okay, the remaining 25 million is fresh cash. And then that was our target. Granted, towards the end, we had maybe there'll be a $5 million one, and that kind of fizzled. But that's exactly why we don't put too much weight behind stuff that's past the deadline, because if they don't commit, slow maybes kill every deal, and especially on a raise this big, you could really get in trouble. So that was really good early deadline that we set that paid massive dividends.
Absolutely, and to that point too, because with the lender, every time you redo structure, you're kind of resetting the clock.
Yeah.
And we had enough time, we planned that, but had we pivoted on that, I know the fruit can look juicy sometimes to take that. It could just kick the whole closing deadline down the line. So.
And it's so tempting. It's 17 million is just there, but it doesn't work like that. A lot of things have to align. And when you set that early deadline, this is a marriage, and I need you to commit hard fast. Because otherwise, it's a lot of dollars.
There's
the whole transaction.
Yeah, and there's too many variables, and pushes timelines and complicates paperwork, which then pushes timeline. And so I agree with you. I think that deadline of really making the decision, and then it brings a lot of clarity, right? With the direction the team's headed, with the capital raising and the paperwork, and everything becomes more aligned without the uncertainty there of well, maybe, and that's just really challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then to add into I'd say the intensity of this decision was through this first few, maybe weeks to a month, the seller caught wind of a couple more assets trading and kind of became not tough to deal with, but rigid in his timeframes, that if we were to need any additional extension or anything that was going to change the escrow period, he was going to tell us no. Because where we tied up the deal and the purchase price at, there was a few assets that were going to trade kind of a good $20,000 a unit more real time.
Yeah.
And so there's some rumors that he's hearing, and it's no, we're going to have to just fully commit and close.
Do not mess up.
So that helps us make a decision in that scenario.
And it helps us have that early time frame they're referring to on go or no go on exchanges.
Right. Yes.
And then if they're not fully in with doc signed, we have to move on.
Yeah.
And so that was nice to, and that was a good learning experience there too.
Yeah. And I think you guys do a really good job, where I'm not always the most organized, and you two are my backstop, where it's very much the organizational process. that you guys run in that structure helps me because I'm really good with a North Star. If someone just tells me, like a dog with a bone, it says like, you just tell me where I gotta go, I will go. I'll run as fast as I can. But it's nice to have the backup. But why don't we wrap up the capital raise? What was the the total amount of people in the pipeline? Maybe if we have how many conversations, even ballpark, and then how many investors? What was like the average or median size check?
So our total pipeline was a little bit, I think, over 400 investors. We solidified 97 investors. 33 were new, 64 were repeat investors. So it's 2/3 repeat investment. It's really strong for especially a deal this size. And average check size is $350,000. Median check size is $150,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So you could see that there's a handful of larger investors outside of just the exchanges. That's awesome. Yeah, that's an organization, like the amount of work that goes into that many different clients and documenting and getting all of the signatures and proper documentation and everything that you need a team for that.
Oh my gosh.
That's a lot.
Morgan West had a lot of subscription agreements flying across his desk. Yeah.
So then let's kind of move into the model and kind of how we saw the deal kind of shaking down. We got boots on the ground, but first shout out to Michael because we kind of went a couple of dimensions further into our underwriting model on this deal. And it added some new challenges on boot up because there are more moving parts. We have a lot of inventory with this deal. I will say I'm really happy now that the deal's done and we decided along the way to raise all cash for the Parkland homes that came with it.
Yeah.
Just to minimize all of those risks and the dynamics of the cost to hold that inventory is very minimal and it actually turns a decent return for the investors and the deal in general. And I'd say that was a huge win to sort of kind of open up and go a couple of layers deeper on the POH side. And I'll give you a round of applause for that because this has been a long learning curve, and a lot of the guys in our industry don't execute real well on the Parkland home dynamic. It's kind of an afterthought, but it is a means to the end. So we all recognize it as a need, but understanding how much money we can recapture, one of the big learning curves of this deal was how much real revenue comes back. Now you want to make reasonable assumptions, conservative on that, but it's real, and it can be to the tune of millions of dollars on this size of a deal where you put all this money into the inventory or you end up with a handful of homes a year kind of as you just operate normally, but you throw, let's say the $20,000, $30,000 in renovation cost, if you have to, you get a lot of that back. And so things in the past where we would just ignore those dynamics and in the attempt to be more conservative, we can't ignore when you have this much scale of 100 homes. We're going to end up with probably another 20 a year, that are just not ours now, and we'll just end up with them kind of like apartment turnover. We're just going to end up having to touch them and renovate them. So Michael's new model really put a whole nother set of optics onto how to execute. And I think we settled in to a really great place and everyone feels good about it.
100%.
Yeah, it took a minute to get comfortable with the deal given the size and the dynamic of the Parkland homes especially. Just under 100 total POH, most of which were occupied. But as we know, POH functions a lot like multifamily from a turnover perspective. So you're dealing not only with the vacant inventory and the new homes that we're planning on setting in the vacant spaces, but also the turnover that you're getting on the Parkland home side. So trying to figure out the dynamic between all of those, gaining occupancy, what do we have to achieve in terms of home sales, knowing that in the past, we've dealt with some POH situations where we understand the dynamic between renting and selling and what we like to refer to as sunk cost on Parkland homes, which is really just all the costs associated with maintaining and managing the Parkland homes from the mortgage payments to the repairs and maintenance to the insurance to all the unplanned expenses. So it took a minute to get familiar with, comfortable with it, and I feel like we landed on some pretty reasonable assumptions to allow us to achieve our goals from a return perspective, reasonable expectations for operations, we really got familiar with the market in terms of the competition and how confident we were going to be in terms of the home sales plan. So we learned that in the entire metro, and again, this is a metro consistent of just under 8 million people, there was roughly 100 homes for sale throughout the entire metro, mobile homes, which is wild compared to a lot of other markets that we're familiar with and operate in. So in the Conroe submarket, there was roughly 10, and most of those were within our park. So the supply-demand dynamic was just really strong, and where we kind of settled in at in terms of the home sales pricing and strategy and number of home sales per month, that whole dynamic, we felt good about just due to the market research that we had done. And so that was the biggest hurdle, was getting over that. Everything else, as Tide mentioned, operationally was a strike. So that's probably where we spent the most time in underwriting and in really discussions throughout the deal. Because also the park on home component from a pricing perspective was just under 10% of the total purchase price. So a large component of the return is dependent on the home sales execution.
Yeah, and just to expand on that a little bit, something we did unique to this deal from a due diligence standpoint is normally we send out operational teams to basically go through our checklist. We also go out there, but this time we sent our sales manager and a new sales agent because it was city services. It didn't have a huge amenity package. It had a lot of newer inventory. The big question mark on this deal was, can we efficiently and effectively move inventory? So we did it a little differently. So our sales manager walked every single house with them and took a look at what we had. And she did a whole market study and came up to the conclusion that she felt like she could hit the model. And we felt it was pretty conservative. I think the initial underwriting was between 3 and 4 home movements a month. And it went down to 2 in our final underwriting. And that was to be conservative. We felt we could still hit it, but we wanted to play it safe. It's a big deal. We don't want to have a miss on something like that. So yeah, it was a cool opportunity to look at this.
Yeah. And I think to add in it, kind of in my department now, I work on a lot of capital improvements and amenity packages, and like home sales and the amenity package was kind of like a big component. And this property right now doesn't have any amenity package. They have an office up front that a team's at, which is great, when we were really excited about, because you can have 4 or 5 team members on site every day. For this size property, you need that, and it works really well operationally when you can have that. And so, as we went there and drove it and really kind of felt the market in addition to feeling the property, it was one of those things where I was like, wow, there's so much opportunity here. There's this huge, we call it the barndo, because it's like this barn
Blake's
shape.
barndo.
Blake's. No, I'm not going to that one. And it's a family community, right? And so it's like, man, let's celebrate that and really kind of help sell homes, help our sales team, and create this space with the existing structures that are already here. And so we plan to do that, and we're going to kind of create this clubhouse area where they can hang out, probably put a playground in for the kids, put in an area where food trucks can kind of come in and out. We're going to look for an area to add a dog park, because I think a lot of families have dogs there. And so, and then another big one too is when we were there, I always like to drive the property during the day and at night.
We got to go through that whole trip.
Because you learn things when you drive a property at night versus the day. You see different things. You notice how dark it is, if there's street lights, and a lot of times we find that there are street lights, but they're out. And it's as simple as calling, the city and turning them back on, or the power company. And so it's fun things like that we get to learn and kind of feel when we're out there. And then now that we've closed on the deal and the teams actually are, working together with us, now I like to ask them questions let's learn, what do the residents like and what do they want? And so then we can really figure out how to add value here. And so I have fun doing that.
That trip was a lot of fun. A couple of things. Number one, on that amenity package, just to give our audience a little bit of an understanding. Currently, when you drive into the park, there's a giant barndo filled with junk.
It's
Now,
like old trucks, like semi trucks, or we don't know what it is.
To the level where we were like confused as to like, wait,
Is that ours?
Do we own this?
who owns that? Because
Yeah.
like, why is there all these semi trucks and trailers and things in there? Like, do they rent it out? We're like, Michael, is there any income for that?
Right.
Like, what's going on here? You know? And lo and behold, it was just the guy that built the park that these people bought it from. I think there was some challenges with titling or whatever, and they never did anything with it. So it's kind of like just as like a junkyard, but it's a great space. Can really become like a clubhouse event center.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
that's a huge benefit to current tenants, right? Like every day you drive through a junkyard to get to your home, it's terrible. Now we're going to make it beautiful,
Yeah.
which is so special. But yeah, so we decided to go out there, and the thing I'm thinking, the reason I keep laughing is we get there and we go into this convenience store and we're all buying snacks, and Ben buys this bag of beef jerky, and he's like, you know what, guys, I don't feel like I want beef jerky, and he starts handing it around, and I'm sitting driving, and I'm like, gosh, this no man's beef jerky so dry. And Blake looks at me and goes, is this the driest beef jerky? I couldn't stop thinking about that.
We have a lot of fun when we're out there. And we had some good laughs along the way, learning the market, bumping into stuff. It's a good time. Speaking of which, then we bumped into the 90 acres, you know, so this deal comes with 90 extra acres, and it's like for free. It just comes with it, you know? And so we had a lot of fun driving around, kind of trying to figure that out. And so I'd say the update now that we're done with the deal, we own the land, is we're going to fully separate it from the mobile home park. And so then legally we can start to carve it away. And we have a few developer, civil engineer kind of partners that are looking into residential or industrial. And we're kind of wiggling into what's the highest and best use, but it's going to be one of the two there most likely. And we're excited because so far it's not been like a clean, like this is industrial or this is residential, but everyone loves the area and is eager to kind of uncover some of the detailed challenges with the lay of the land, the parcel, there's a kind of a creek bottom that runs through it. So some flood area within the 90 acres. So it's like, how much can we net? But anyways, a lot to be uncovered, and a lot more updates will be following on the land. But we're excited about that being kind of a bonus, and I think it's going to do really well.
And when we were driving through the area, the first day we get there, we're on this frontage road, and we're kind of like, it just wasn't popping off. You know, it was kind of just, you know, some standard shops, some standard strip malls. Mm-hmm. And we decide that night we're going to go get some dinner, and so we drive to the Woodlands, which is like 15 minutes away. And all of a sudden we pull in Ferraris all over the steakhouse parking lot, 16-year-old girls hopping out of brand new Range Rovers. It was like, oh, there's money here. There's huge pocket of gentrification that we're going to net benefit. And then we went back after, because we were talking about the evening, and we went on the primary road, and then we found we were like 2 streetlights from downtown Conroe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And realized how like it's such a home run central location, which is going to net demand for that 90 acres. It's going to be a popular piece of land.
And that you're talking about like the importance of like, if you're a real estate investor, like you have to be physically in the market. Like we always talk about this, like I need to go fill the market. I need to drive around, and you need to spend like multiple days out there and drive into the community a bunch of different ways. Like we're always really good about that. Let's take this way. Like, let's take this way. Like,
let's come in from over here.
You want to
Different
really
times, too.
understand the entire market and like the importance of like what, you know, the Ferraris and McLarens, like none of that really matters for our asset class, right? But why that's really important to be 15 minutes away from that is because Conroe Estates, this community, this is the working class community that then supports the overall
Economic hub.
the
economic hub.
The economic hub of this city. Like you need like the blue collar guys. That's and they don't want to be on the outskirts of town. They need to be right in town, especially how expensive gas is getting, right? And so that's why like you want these centrally located parks. And Michael, I mean, I don't even know if, you know, people listening to this understand some of the gold that you were dropping there. Like, and you know, this park, at the end, I never know how good a park is. I always tell investors, it takes me like 2 years to realize how great a deal is, right? Like how, you know, how it ultimately performs. But this was one of those ones where like every like week or month, like I'm like, oh my gosh, this deal just continues to get better and better. And one of the things that he said that like probably didn't get picked up on is that this is an 8 million person metro. And when you go look on our version of Zillow, which is
MH Village.
Yeah, MH Village. There's like 100 homes for sale, right? just to put some comparison in there, if you look at Phoenix, which is like one of our favorite markets, and that's like a metro of like 6-7 million people, and you look at that same website, you're going to find what, 10,000 maybe? Like
probably over 1,000 for sure.
Yeah. And so I was like, towards the end of like this fundraise, and it wasn't a sales pitch, I'm like, this is a one of one deal. Like it truly is in Conroe. It's the only 400 site deal in Conroe. There is no inventory. We'd even talk about how these homes are worth $70,000, $80,000, but we price them in the model to sell them at $50,000, which that's what's getting reflected in the returns, and then turnover inventory. Keep the affordability back with the resident. $10,000 is 20% down on a $50,000 home, reduces that mortgage payment, that all in, plus scaling up rents all the way up to $1,000. That's what they're currently paying as rentals. And he talked about like why you don't want rentals, right? The R&M, it's like a multifamily, which is 50% turnover versus someone that owns a house, 2 to 5% on the high side. So it's just one of those things. And to give Michael credit, these are the hardest deals to underwrite. Like he's very talented. Like to underwrite a deal like this is almost impossible, right? I could not do this and he's using all of our data. But like when you think about, you have $5 million of inventory that you have to account for. And then that you are modeling how many homes conservatively with my sales team, with Tide, with accounting, like how we perform, how many are you selling a month? You're recapturing that cash and have to then flow it through to the investors. Like to like model that, all those scenarios, it's on 400 sites. I mean, it's quite the feat. And then I know what the investors get, that, we send them, we try to simplify that as much as possible.
Yeah. To display it,
because there is so much that's going on.
Behind the scene,
But yeah, kudos to you, Michael, on all that. Cause I know, your models are getting more like complex, but they have to be because this is a complex asset class. And I just kind of wanted to paint that.
Don't make any mistakes, Michael.
When it was cool. It was a good journey too, because we kind of figured out how to keep it simple and sort of round down on assumptions on like how many we need to sell. There's just some cool things. We're going to innovate, and we're probably going to use this elsewhere in the portfolio.
Yeah.
Which is we're learning like right now as we implement and roll out the team to sell homes. Now that it's like fully onboarded, is you can increase. We can do a home buyer credit that makes their down payment higher percentage, which then gets them into a better bucket of loan products, which in the end net a lower rate in a longer term. So then reducing that payment, we learned that we can't directly just buy the rate down. So we're like trying everything, but for sure we can give them like a buyer credit, and it gets them into that better. It's just an all around better, asset for the lender. It's better collateral. And the rate and terms gets better and better.
Yeah.
So, and we may be able to massage that to where we end up selling them for 60 because beyond 10 grand, they won't give us the benefit.
Yeah.
So then it's just going to kind of wiggle in. And I think our assumption is really healthy, conservative, and it may end up becoming a little bit better than that.
Yeah.
And to give a little color on that is the whole goal is sticky tenants, right?
Yes.
And so getting equity in your own home, making it super affordable is really the main driver of our business model. And it's really cool that we're able to innovate there. The previous owner had a directive for rentals. That was their primary driver, but I think they had 7 home sales the year prior to us buying it, and they were trading in $75,000 to $80,000, which tells us that the market has demand for our product. So if we're moving it at 50 or 60,000 and including some equity in it, it's a huge win for the end consumer. And another thing that we did when we were down there is we wanted to stay competitive, and we were looking at all the multi. We spent like 3 hours one morning driving all kinds of places. We were all sitting in a coffee shop with like different people looking at Zillow and looking at Redfin and arguing different takes.
Yeah.
And we ended up, I think, lowering our initial rent increase by like $75 for the first year, just to kind of make us consistently competitive. So I think it's a lot of wins at this deal.
And the deal supports that, which is so like
beautiful.
Yeah, which is beautiful because you are transacting these homes and recouping so much cash that this isn't like, oh, you got to drive pad rent to get to your return. It's a really unique deal.
And if we can do it slower versus overnight in a couple of, rent increases, we prefer that, just so it's not such a heavy hit on the residents.
Exactly.
Yeah, and just another note on that. For the first year or two, in order to get sales velocity up, another assumption that we made was getting tenants in at $895, which was actually roughly $50 below where they were bringing new tenants in for the last year. So we're essentially offering discounted lot rent over the previous seller's expectations, lot rents. So I think that's going to help us to kind of get things moving the first year and hit our marks.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a learning experience for us in Texas because we're so used to electrical infrastructure failing in Arizona. Basically, no one was designed to live in Arizona pre-modern history. So everything's 50 amp, and in the summertime, a lot of older deals have issues. And so that's something we're always looking for. We're always trying to bring in electrical engineers and kind of get an understanding on source power reference. And so we're driving through the park, and we see the local power team is out there, and they're doing some repairs. So we roll down the window, and it's this guy. He has like a giant beard. I'm not exaggerating. It was so insane. And we just started talking with him and asking him, what the responsibilities are, kind of what amperage we're seeing. And he basically said, it's fully our responsibility. And they're all 200 amp pedestals for the most part in that community. And the only time they're out there is because the trees are interfering with the electric lines overhead. And so another thing that we love is anytime we see overhead electrical, it's way easier to service because the primary transformer brings enough energy to where they can just replace that one pole versus something that's underground where you're having to update transformers on the ground and reroute conduit and all the things that come with it. So
yeah, but if it's brand new and it's underground, great. If it's 50 years old, you'd rather have it on a pole.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. So seeing that this was all overhead, 200 amp, it's fully theirs. We checked plumbing. We had a great wastewater engineer come out and scope the system, and just everything kept coming back clean. It just was a really easy DD.
Yeah, which I have to make the comment that as we were driving through the park, given that there was 200 amp, there was a Tesla. One of the tenants had a Tesla. Was charging it, the fast charging.
Which Arizona, we would be like, we're gonna set something on fire. It's a whole other world in Texas. They just are they hit electric hard. It's very robust out there in comparison.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, and that was just another chip of how Ben was saying, the deal just kept kind of through the process of us acquiring it, just kind of kept getting better and better. And due diligence is one of those things where it's we're always looking for something, we're always digging deeper to make sure that there's nothing catastrophic that we're going to kind of come across. And we really didn't. And we were really pleasantly surprised. So it was just another tally, yep, this is a really good deal.
It was all green lights.
Yeah.
What were some of the challenges that, got us, nervous throughout the deal? And so, we could talk a little bit about financing the loan this time. Mm-hmm. We decided to go out to bid with the agencies. Really ended up being quickly the lead horses from a rate perspective. We went for a hell of a ride on the treasury front. It's you never really know when you do a real estate deal, but typically in a few months, you might swing 20 basis points,
Fair.
And with the Iran conflict, we spiked probably a good 40, if not a little bit more 50, than 40.
50,
yeah.
So 0.5%,
Big
so
deal.
that also hit us on our underwriting side. If I was to ask for a retrade for the treasury specifically, not a hardware item, not something that was wrong with the deal, the guy would have told me to pound sand. So that was not an option.
But the important part of why we would never want that even to occur is because you kind of touched on it earlier, is that we got this at really good price per pound. Right. So that to me, I'm like, oh my God, we stole this deal. So let's be squeaky clean, as you always say, and just.
Yep. And that's our reputation. That's Blake and Jen's reputation.
I mean, we really try to be we give a very straightforward offer, and we're very straightforward to deal with. We gather the data we need, but we don't create just busyness and noise just because.
Right.
And so we pride ourselves on being really great to work with, so that because a lot of these sellers have a lot more product that we would eventually like to buy. So then, anyways, Fannie Mae shook down to be the best lender, kind of quote dynamic, the best spread over the 10-year treasury. Closing rate locked in, finalized was 5.75%, 10-year interest only. And so all in all, I mean, it's a little higher than we hoped. It hurts cash flow a little bit on the front end, but it's a great rate. Keeping a long-term historic context present, 5.75% is a great rate.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
And it gets rid of the noise. It's fixed for 10 years. We like the returns, so it's like bird in hand. Let's go. One of the interesting dynamics of this deal was in August, so the day we closed, essentially, the rent increase hit. So we have what's called an A-B loan. We closed on the A portion at closing of $33 million and change, and then we get the second draw, essentially, of this loan in a few months, and that's another $2.5 million. So it'll get us up into the $35.5 million total loan range. That was all baked in on the front end, but so we're still working to make sure we get there to maximize and get the total appropriate amount of cash in the bank.
And they do that just so they can see the rent increase kind of going into effect and then having 60 days or so worth of collections on that.
Yep. And so lenders are this was a big boy loan, I think. So we felt the dynamic of making sure we were good sponsors. And I think that there's some noise going on the multifamily landscape. So it heightened scrutiny. And so we had to earn this deal, I'd say, from start to finish all the way through closing. And then we're still earning it through the B loan.
Through the B loan. Yeah.
So it's been a heck of a journey on the lender interface, but we're really happy in hindsight now, especially knowing what we know now, we're really happy that we chose the conservative route because it really tapered a lot of the challenge because it wasn't like we were asking for max loan to values.
Mm-hmm.
We were in that like lower risk tier bucket from a lender perspective the whole way through. And so everyone's happy with the deal. Fannie was really great in the end to deal with. And we're excited to have another big loan done with them.
Yeah.
And I think another thing, regardless of all of the challenges that arose and I think all of the expectations that we set early, going back to Morgan's initial comment about timeframes, it was probably one of our smoother closings over the past few deals that we've done. So that was cool to see, regardless of it being the biggest deal. I think our team was prepared for that, and it showed. I feel like typically we're waiting for something to happen, and everything was just kind of rolling in on time. So
no, we're definitely
Morgan can.
We were waiting for the last minute kind of fire drill, but it really didn't come up. Everything was, and I think part of that too is we put an internal target of closing 2 weeks early, and so on our side we're ready to go, knowing that it's probably going to get pushed back a little bit. And I think it ended up being 3 weeks for our initial target close date. But we were ready to go. And shout out to our lending team too, because the previous deal we didn't have our normal crew, and it was felt tremendously. So having our guys at bat, knowing that this was a big deal, having all the ducks in a row, all the T's crossed, I's dotted. When it came to close, it was just waiting for that recording email, and we closed. And it really was a pretty smooth transaction towards the end.
Yeah. Shout out to Art Tuverson and his Berkadia team. They did a great job with us.
Yeah, love working with those guys.
Well, anything, final thoughts?
No, thank you to all the investors that partnered with us on this deal. We're really appreciate it. We sent out a video, so I won't go into too much detail on that. But no, it's exciting. I think what makes it really fun is just the overall team that we're building, and and the fact that you're getting a real inside look. I don't think anyone else probably does this of sharing the process of tying up a deal, that entire how the sausage is made, right? And it's just really cool to work with really talented people that are all really focused and skilled at their specific role and job.
Yeah.
So the collective, we can go and present these deals and these amazing opportunities to the investors.
Yeah.
Right? These are amazing opportunities that this is off market. No one else saw this deal. Right.
Just for fun, the team that represents Carlisle called me and wondered where the heck we got it.
Yeah.
They didn't see it.
And so,
it's a hell of a deal.
These really are the opportunities that we want to be invested in. These are the opportunities that we want our clients to be invested in.
Yeah.
And no one else is seeing these opportunities, but it takes the collective team, it takes the collective investors to believe and have the same mission. And that's how all this stuff comes together.
Yeah.
And now, Tide and his team, they basically go and take over and execute on the business plan, right? And we couldn't go out and continue to search for new deals and grow the portfolio without having the 50 plus employees that Tide leads to then go and execute on all of this stuff. So you need, you need everyone right, to make this thing work. Because if not, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It takes the whole team for sure.
And I think that like adding to what you just said on like the management piece now with like the handoff and the pass of the baton, like we do get to manage these assets. So if something goes sideways, you know, we really do watch them for the full 10-year period of the loan and make sure that it is staying on track with Michael's model. And that's important to us, like, you know, and so it's fun to kind of see and feel this like acquisition phase, and then now we get to like watch and be a part of the operational phase and learn things along the way, and it is an incredible asset that we are so excited to be a part of alongside the investors in this deal, and so it'll be a fun kind of journey to kind of watch for the next 10 years.
I think we're all pretty excited to kind of watch what happens with this deal, how it performs, how it grows, the whole amenity package with the barndo, the big team that we've got down there. So
The land.
The land. I mean, there's so many variables. It's fun.
Yeah.
A lot of
You could
different
do a
things.
whole episode or a whole series on this deal.
I think so.
I know.
There's enough.
Yeah,
Enough there.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
It's an honor to earn your trust if you participate in the deal. And we're really excited to get to work and crush it on this deal.
Yeah.
Thanks for participating, and I hope you enjoyed the Conroe Estates wrap up.
Thanks,
Cheers,
everyone.
everybody.
Yeah.